On December 3rd, 2023, Twitter user @DefNotTie posted a short 1-minute clip of comic shop owner Glenn O'Leary. The post simply read, 30-year comic shop owner, and then tagged various people and sources. As of filming this video, the original post currently has over 2.7 million views and has made the rounds on multiple different platforms, such as YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. But why has this post received so much attention? Glenn O'Leary is a 30-year veteran of the comic book industry and owns and operates the Comic Book Palace, a shop located in Haverhill, Massachusetts. The 1-minute clip shared on Twitter originated from a 30-minute video titled The Comic Book Palace Reborn, Episode 42 on Mr. O'Leary's YouTube channel. However, within that brief excerpt, Glenn cemented his status as a legend forever shaping a turning point in the comic book industry.
Most of these new writers don't have the love of comics like these older writers had. And all they care about is, how can I put myself in the book? No, we don't care what you would do if you were Iron Man. We don't care who you are. You're writing Tony Stark. You're not writing yourself in a book. If that's the case, write your own comic with you in it. No one will read it because nobody cares. People grew up, are growing up loving Peter Parker, loving Miles Morales, loving all these Captain America. We don't need you to put your input in it. Just write Steve Rogers. Don't write Steve Rogers. What would Steve Rogers be if I was Steve Rogers? That's not how it works. But that's again how most of these new people write nowadays. That's why most of the stuff is shit. Because we don't care what you would do, because we don't care about your life whatsoever. Just write a book, get paid for what you do, get paid for what you're supposed to be doing, and make it a good story.
There are a lot of great points that Glenn has made here, and it's extremely refreshing to see someone provide honest and genuine feedback and criticism towards current comic pros, who don't really seem interested in either writing good stories and or focusing on accurately portraying legacy characters. You'll also notice that what he says is a very basic and simple opinion that he expresses with undeniable passion and conviction. Nothing of what he says in this is inherently hateful, malicious, or evil, and yet due to the major backlash by comic book creators, editors, and journalists, you would think that he just single-handedly destroyed the entire comic book industry. Every concern of Glenn's comes from a real place of love for these characters, love of these stories, and love of this art form and storytelling medium. Motivated by this genuine desire for success and a deep care for the medium, Glenn offers his constructive criticism informed by 30 years of experience in the trenches of the industry. Retailers tasked with the responsibility of selling comic books often possess a unique and valuable understanding of the market, much more so than that of current comic book creators, which is why Glenn's passion for the direct market and concern for its current state is particularly evident in this clip. He's clearly passionate about the direct market and is upset to see what's been done to it. And to address his points in the video, I think he's right in saying that most comic book readers and fans prefer to experience their beloved characters through the lens of an established characterization, rather than reading a direct reflection of the author as that character. No one wants to read Mags Visaggio as Superboy. While self-insertion may not be the primary cause of the current quality of comic books or declining sales, it undoubtedly contributes to the cavalcade of issues within the industry. Numerous factors impact the quality of modern comic book releases, and Glenn's video effectively identifies a fair amount of them. Which is not to say that creators can't subtly integrate their own perspectives and their own experiences into their work, as exemplified by Tolkien's subconscious incorporation of Catholic themes into his stories. But the core appeal for many fans lies in the continuity and consistency of characters who have endured for decades. This doesn't preclude character development and evolution, but rather emphasizes the importance of maintaining the fundamental essence that resonates with readers. Skilled creators excel in navigating this delicate balance, allowing characters to engage with contemporary issues while yet still remaining true to their established identities. And that's what I think is most important about Glenn's viewpoint here, and what he's trying to get across in this clip. But, of course, leave it to the cancel pigs of the comic book industry to misconstrue and gaslight people into believing a completely different narrative. Over the past decade, we've seen multiple comic pros hunt down creators and fans alike under the guise of virtue and peace. The certain forms of activism and ideologies that these individuals support provide them with opportunities for positive self-representation and displays of moral superiority to gain power, social status, and credibility within the industry. Something they have used to divide and ostracize an entire group of people. One of the most shameful and recent episodes in their reign of terror was the targeting and marginalization of veteran creators Howard Chaykin and Bill Willingham. They tried to destroy these men over their internet history and likes. Another example of this was when Tom King started a digital lynch mob against Jay Lee in an attempt to get him cancelled. Why? Because Jay drew a comic book cover for a creator that Tom believes is associated with a group that he dislikes. This has become the status quo for many creators. These same individuals have also gone after fans, calling them hateful racists, bigots, Nazis, white supremacists, misogynists, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, and alt-right terrorists, all because they expressed criticism towards modern comics for pandering ideological agendas and prioritizing poor marketing and sales strategies over strong stories and characterization. Phil Boyle, owner of Coliseum of Comics, who offered solutions to various challenges facing the comic book industry, was also subjected to vicious attacks from certain individuals within the industry. These solutions included a more affordable price point, fewer variant cover gimmicks, improved editorial oversight, better characterization, writing, and more shipping discounts for retailers. Despite the reasonable nature of these suggestions, Bleeding Cool is now on their third hit piece trying to discredit his claims, saying comics are booming. The industry has never been better, because comics are better than ever. So naturally, after the post of Glenn's 1-minute video was shared on Twitter, the cancel pigs came out in full force and began their targeted attacks. The first to make contact was Jamal Igle. Jamal quote-tweeted the video saying, "He's going to be real shocked about how all comics have been written and how writing in general works. His business is dying because he refuses to change with the times." Jamal later commented under the video stating, "There's a simple rule in sales. Showing contempt for the product shows contempt for the customer. Don't do it. Sell everything like you love it." Interesting that Jamal would take this stance about showing contempt for the customer when he and many others like him have been harassing and attacking fans and customers for years. Glenn hasn't shown contempt towards the product at all. He has shown contempt towards the activist writers who reject legacy characters and loyal fan bases for self-inserts and agendas. I would also argue that promoting products without genuine belief or endorsement is ultimately disingenuous and lacks authenticity. I would much rather a salesperson advise against a purchase that I wouldn't enjoy and encourage me to choose a product that could offer greater satisfaction and value according to my preferences and taste. Wouldn't everyone want that? Igle continues, "Seriously, he reminds me of a few of the old guard guys who used to run shops here in New York City from stores that smelled like stale cigarettes, mold, and urine. Unclean, sloppily stocked. Those guys either went out of business, died, or both. There used to be a shop called Comics Plus in Park Slope. The owner was a miserable old man. His incontinent mother spent every day smoking cigarettes in the store, smelling like urine. He had 2 employees in the years I went there, and reluctantly carried indie books. The place hadn't been cleaned since they were forced to downsize around 1997 and finally closed in the early 2000s. But what does that have to do with Glenn? This is Jamal's way of implying that Glenn is like this disgusting comic shop owner of Comics Plus, in order for people to distance themselves from Glenn and delegitimize everything he is saying. Someone actually commented on Jamal's tweet that while the description of Comics Plus is correct, that's not actually what it was known for. It was known primarily for having an extremely and openly racist owner. That was the reason why people didn't go to that store. But because Jamal Igle doesn't have any basis to outwardly call Glenn a racist, he subtly picks a store known for its racist owner and likens him to Glenn in an attempt to imply that he is also a racist. It's a disingenuous effort to discredit Glenn for his mild take in hopes of gaining leverage in the absence of a strong argument. Then there was Donnie Cates, a man who has been MIA from the industry and social media while dealing with some personal challenges, who decided to make his comeback by attacking Glenn.
Not a great plan.
Donnie has been rumored to have blown through a cash advance from Marvel for books that he never completed, allegedly using that money for what we'll call personal purposes unrelated to professional commitments. Donnie has also allegedly failed to attend rehabilitation programs required and or covered by Marvel and DC. And yet despite these incidences, media outlets and other industry influencers refrain from reporting on these matters, offering support and assistance to him instead. Granted, the impact of a hit piece published at the precise moment someone is already grappling with difficulties can be seen as kicking someone when they're already down, further exacerbating their struggles and hindering potential opportunities for growth and learning. So I'm extremely thankful for this fellowship that instead of resorting to such methods, we've fostered a culture of understanding and support. By recognizing the vulnerability inherent to Donnie's situation, people in the comic community allowed him space to learn from his mistakes and emerge stronger. After all, the true measure of a community lies not in its ability to condemn, but in its capacity to uplift and heal, which is what any good superhero would do. But I think fan tolerance for this kind of behavior diminishes in the absence of remorse for its impact on others, especially with him trying to ingratiate himself back into the industry after everything that has happened. But the fact that Donnie, of all people, would try to play the white knight by owning the chuds and jumping in on this cancel mob against Glenn is insulting. Donnie's response to the video of Glenn reads like this. Don't you guys hate when you go into a hardware store, how the guy behind the counter always tells you how much hammers suck? Well, as my good friend Aaron Sparrow would say, I do like it when the hardware store owner tells me which hammers are garbage quality. Donnie later deleted that initial tweet but doubled down on it saying, okay, apparently people are not loving my reply, and that's okay. Allow me to double down. It's okay for two things to be true at the same time. Are there some not great books on the stands? Of course, always has been. Does that mean that all books are crap? Of course not. And listen, I ran a chain of comic shop for years before I did this. And did I love everything? No. Would I tell someone that it sucked if asked? Probably. But in the same breath, and with the limited time I had with them, I would suggest something that I thought they'd like. And that's my biggest problem with this. That after 30 years of what I can only assume is a wealth of knowledge of comics, he chose his time in front of the camera to dissuade people from buying the product he sells, instead of selling us on what he does like. As of making this video, Donnie has deleted this thread of tweets as well. I dislike this response almost as much as his stupid hardware store analogy. For starters, it's misleading to claim that Glenn utilizes his moment of public attention solely to criticize modern comics. This assertion demonstrably ignores the extensive body of content on Glenn's YouTube channel, encompassing over 180 videos ranging from a few minutes to over half an hour in length. These videos comprehensively explore both the positive and negative aspects of the comic book industry. Whether through deliberate misrepresentation or just sheer incompetence, the fact remains that Donnie decided to jump in on the bandwagon full of cancel pigs to gaslight the argument and delegitimize the critique and opinions of a figure who deserves respect within the comic book industry. And to administer the final blow was corrupt journalist Heidi McDonald. Yes, the same Heidi McDonald that attributed false claims of high sales to ideological SJW Comics misleading comic shop owners into purchasing unsellable stock with limited return options. The same Heidi McDonald that participated in whisper networks, fostering a climate of fear and paranoia within the industry, stifling innovation and creative expression. The same Heidi McDonald who added insult to injury by forcing heartbroken comic shop owners to reiterate the same broken rhetoric that contributed to their business closures. And the same Heidi McDonald who had the audacity to claim that in this 1-minute clip, Glenn used coded language insinuating that he in fact is a racist. Heidi's tweet reads as follows. The tell in that retailer vid is when he mentions that people grew up reading Miles Morales. Miles debuted in 2011 and was criticized right away for not being Peter Parker. I don't need to show you all the racist takes on Miles. You were there, but now he's a beloved classic. What tell is Heidi insinuating that by somehow mentioning Miles Morales in his video, that Glenn's coded language is now part of all the racist takes made on Miles Morales? I'm pretty sure the exact quote that he used was, "People grew up, people are growing up loving Peter Parker, loving Miles Morales, loving all these characters." This tweet and the many others like it further exemplify the malicious tendencies of cancel pigs to deliberately and selectively misinterpret information in a manner that aligns only with their existing agenda, regardless of context. These are just a few examples of the many individuals that decided to go after Glenn and his unassailable opinions. They use mob tactics to cancel, destroy, and erase any and all criticism of the mainstream comic book industry, therefore eliminating and opposing ideals and solidifying their power within the industry. These disgusting public attacks and the harassment directed at Glenn, as evidenced by the numerous vitriolic and hateful responses, would be unacceptable within any other legitimate industry. The lack of engagement from these creators, corporations, and journalists extends to a complete denial of responsibility for the industry's current downturn, and a refusal to participate in identifying any solutions due to the inability to acknowledge feedback or that there is even a problem in the comic industry to begin with. In simpler terms, most current comic pros on Twitter and within these whisper networks hate accountability. For years, readers have used platforms such as Twitter and YouTube to provide legitimate good faith criticisms about the degrading quality of comic books. And yet the majority of responses from multiple professional creators is, "Get over it, you big man baby. You are not the customer. Retailers are. And if you don't like it, don't buy it." To which readers said, "Bet," and stopped buying the books. Now retailers are beginning to notice that a lot of the current comics aren't selling, and that lifelong fans and readers don't like them and are rejecting them at a rapid rate, which has resulted in these same comic pros that attacked fans earlier and ridiculed them for their criticisms to turn their attention to the retailer, saying, "It's not our fault. You, the retailer and shop owner, don't know how to do your job. You are the problem." But let's not forget, According to these people, the comic industry is doing great, sales are great, and there's no problem, further proving that these individuals cannot and will not take any responsibility for their actions. The mask has completely come off. Even normies are beginning to notice how vicious and awful these people are, how big of bullies they are. And now these individuals who used to revel in dunking on the chuds have now realized how much they look like complete and utter assholes.
Are we the baddies?
So instead of snarky, arrogant, and mean-spirited attacks, they are now going for the insufferable pandering and virtue signaling of kindness and love, preaching that they would just love to see people talking about the comics they love and not dare criticize or talk about the comics that they hate, as witnessed in one of Heidi McDonald's recent tweets. I have a thought experiment for you all. Imagine if a retailer made a video about a comic that they really loved, that they wished more people would buy and order, that showed passion and love for comics and the industry. Would you share it the way you do the negative ones? A lot of people that frequent comic book YouTube will know that if you go onto any large YouTuber's channel and actually look at their vast library of videos and live streams, you'll find that these comic book YouTubers are true fans. They talk about the things that they love and the things that they hate. So the inauthenticity of the recent virtue signaling from these bad actors is on full display for everyone and anyone who does any ounce of research. But given their previous conduct and noticing the loss of the moral high ground, it's clear that this was nothing more than a calculated attempt at damage control, rather than a sincere change of heart. But out of all of this cruelty from the insufferable personalities online, one voice reigned supreme. One voice that sounded in the deep amongst the sniveling, virtue-signaling, concern-trolling digital lynch mob. That voice was comic book legend Mark Millar. Joseph Campbell defines the hero's journey as a narrative archetype that describes the common pattern of a hero's journey through transformation and growth, following three main stages: departure, initiation, and return. After the attacks made on Glenn by various comic book pros, Glenn found himself within the initiation stage of the hero's journey, in which our hero is tested, where he faces various challenges and trials, encountering both allies and enemies along the way. This is also where he will face his greatest challenge and encounter his deepest fears. The hero undergoes the ordeal, and it becomes a transformative experience that tests him to his limits, and in the end, the hero emerges from the ordeal victorious, having earned a reward or treasure. I can joyfully say that one of the friends that Glenn met along his hero's journey was industry legend Mark Millar, who became one of the largest supporters of Glenn and actually reached out to him personally for an interview. Over the course of a few days, Mark's Twitter post told the story of Glenn becoming a hero. This vid had been everywhere the past 24 hours, and rightly so. The rest of us are armchair generals declaring news from the front. Comic retailers are in the trenches and seeing exactly what's going on. He's clearly passionate about the direct market and upset what's been done to it. Talking to Glenn tonight on my Miller Time YouTube channel. All I've seen is guys pile on him for expressing legitimate concerns about his biz, and I hate seeing people bullied. Looking forward to a proper chat and hearing his story in depth. I was so appalled at the way a comic retailer was being harassed and bullied by a digital mob this week just for saying comic books are going in the wrong direction. I had to talk to him. Here's my interview with Glenn O'Leary from this afternoon. The bullying of retailer Glenn O'Leary was the turning point last week. The change in the air was palpable. The absolute cruelty of these digital mobs was very, very visible to all, and this won't be tolerated going forward. Glenn, you saved comics. You were our Spartacus. Mark hailed him as a hero and praised him for how he turned the tide for the industry. Other notable figures such as Nerdrotic, Gail Simone, Ethan Van Sciver, Richard Meyer, and a myriad of others came to the aid of this comic shop owner, rallying around him, showcasing their full support and endorsement. I was also inspired to see that many fans were supporting Glenn as well. It wasn't just a few small voices on the internet, but full swaths of people coming out in full force to provide reinforcement and positive affirmation for Glenn's video. So much so that, in fact, Glenn's YouTube channel, The Comic Book Palace, gained over 3,000 subscribers in less than a week. The recent events have clearly distinguished who the heroes and villains are within the industry. Ultimately, those with malicious intentions will reveal their true colors over time. In fact, many creators have now embarked in an effort to cancel Mark Millar for supporting Glenn. However, by withholding our support for their obscene actions and denying them any power, they will inevitably fade into obscurity. I do think it's crucial to expose the absurdity and hateful intent of these online mobs while simultaneously recognizing their lack of genuine power, because several prominent creators within the industry have, unfortunately, lived in fear of these individuals for years, primarily due to the power we have inadvertently granted them. These cancel pigs thrive on inflicting pain upon others, often driven by their own personal misery and desire to spread hatred. Ultimately, it is important to never take them seriously. Despite the attacks directed towards Glenn and now Mark, out of the endless cycle of arguments, backtracking, and virtue signaling, a remarkable development has emerged. A small group of individuals bravely stood against the insults and bullying tactics of tyrants, demonstrating something both valuable and essential. The industry is capable of healing. Cancel culture often thrives on its ability to overwhelm individuals through its sheer numerical advantage and overwhelming odds. However, the recent outpouring of support for Glenn across various platforms like Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook suggests a potential turning point in the narrative surrounding this phenomenon. These events highlight the detrimental impact of such inexcusable behavior by grown men and women, and how it needs to be publicly shamed and ridiculed for it to die. Furthermore, the public response may be beginning to display signs of future potential, and could also represent a developing and significant shift towards holding individuals accountable for their actions. Why would Donny Cates delete all of his previous tweets against Glenn? Why would comic pros who have previously been extremely hostile and malicious now completely change their tune and champion more positive, uplifting talking points? While the immediate impact of this current battle may be beneficial in the short term, I don't know if it will offer potential long-term growth and healing within the industry. Because while the current fervor of this story may be invigorating, I still can't help but think that this will be used as ammunition and barriers for the activist cancel pig comic pros and whisper networks to dig their heels in even more, and may even have the potential to further entrench existing divisions, providing fuel for the ongoing culture war within the comic book industry. To truly see significant change within comics, I believe that we would need to witness a complete and utter restructuring of the entire industry, from the top corporate executives all the way down to the creatives. I will say this, however. The events of the past week represent a significant victory, not just for Mark Millar, not just for Glenn, and not just for long-standing comic book fans like myself who have raised these concerns for years, but a significant victory for the industry as a whole, an opportunity for growth and healing, and perhaps a new frontier. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.